What's the weirdest thing you've ever found in someone else's house? 1. The freezer of nightmares. I was invited to my boss's house for a casual dinner. Everything seemed normal: wine, music, small talk. At one point, he told me to grab a bottle of water from the fridge. I opened it and froze. Inside was a doll's head, 3 Ziploc bags full of what looked like human hair, and a handwritten note that said, "Do not touch," for the project. I closed the fridge slowly and said I wasn't thirsty. Later, he explained it was part of an art installation about childhood trauma. Honestly, I think the trauma was mine now. Out of the mirror room. I was visiting a friend who had just moved into a new place. She told me to find the bathroom, but I opened the wrong door. Inside was a room covered entirely in mirrors, walls, ceiling, even the floor. In the center was a single white chair with a camera pointed directly at it. She appeared behind me and said, "Oops, not that one." Apparently, it was for her performance art class. But there were no paints, no sketches, just silence and reflections. I felt like I'd walked into a psychological thriller. 3. The ex-boyfriend shrine. I'd been dating this guy for about a month when he invited me over. In his living room, there was a literal shrine. Candles, framed photos, a dried rose, and a letter. I assumed it was for a deceased relative. Nope, it was his ex. He said it was part of his healing process and that he honored the energy daily. I honored my instincts and left. I'm all for closure, but this felt like spiritual stalking. The bathroom jury. I went to a house party and eventually needed to use the bathroom. When I walked in, I was greeted by 12 framed portraits, all staring directly at the toilet. They were serious-looking people I didn't recognize, hung in perfect alignment. I felt like I was being judged by a panel while doing my business. When I asked the host about it, he said, "It keeps people from taking too long." It worked. I was out in under 30 seconds. 5. The nail archive. I volunteered to help clean an elderly woman's house. While organizing a cookie tin, I found hundreds of clipped fingernails, sorted by year. I thought it was trash, but she stopped me and said, "Don't throw those away. They're my husband's. I've kept them since we got married." Each bundle was labeled 1978, toes, 1983, hands. I didn't know whether to cry or run. I now ask what's inside every tin before opening it. Say, the talking plush toy, I stayed at my cousin's house during a trip. They gave me the guest room, which had a closet full of old toys. At 3 a.m., one of the plush toys started talking. It said, "I'm watching you." I jumped out of bed, checked for batteries. None. I opened it. Empty. I shoved it back in the closet and didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, my cousin casually mentioned it used to belong to his sister, who passed away years ago. I left early. 1. The perfume fridge friend asked me to store something in her fridge. When I opened it, there was no food, just perfumes, creams, and essential oils. She said cold energy activates their power. I just wanted to put my yogurt somewhere. I wedged it between a bottle of Chanel and a jar of lavender balm. Sometimes the weirdest part isn't what's missing, it's what's there. 8. The stuffed cat sailor. I went to dinner at a couple's house. In their living room was a cat, dressed in a tiny sailor outfit, sitting perfectly still. I thought it was a quirky pet, until I realized it wasn't breathing. Turns out it was their deceased cat, professionally taxidermied and dressed like a sea captain. They invited me to sit next to him. I chose the farthest chair possible. I've never wanted a meal to end faster.